shelves at retail stores, waiting 3 days for a break to fill, or driving across town to find out your hobby shop closed at 4 when you always have a card show in your pocket. With Loop, you can instantly buy cards, packs, boxes, or into auctions with the click of a button, and do it all while chatting with some of the best personalities and the best community in the hobby. Download the Loop app now on iOS or Android. Loop, a card show in your pocket.
Y'all ready?
Fish Stripes Live, presented by Loop, with your host, Eli Sussman. First time hosting this stream in almost a full year. First time since we partnered up with Loop. Fish Stripes Live, always presented by our guys at Loop. This being the debut. You can see it a little bit over my left shoulder, their sign in right field. I think I could get a better angle of that for everybody to see at home. They were really excited about that. Here's a better one. Yeah, there we go. If you're at the ballpark today, some of you hopefully joining us from the park, I imagine a lot of you guys from home as well. Be sure to check out they have a little setup outside the ballpark. They have the sign in the ballpark. And of course, you can find them always here. The best place to go for card collectors, buyers, or sellers. They are awesome. And here on the show, just a smaller panel than usual because most of my guys are at the home opener themselves. Daniel and Isaac and Kevin and Noah, but we have our regular Alex Carver from Fish on the Farm, and we have I can't believe it. I forgot to update your name, Sean. That's still from his Jeopardy appearance. Sean Millerick.
Still got the points.
He finished in the positive, and he wants you to remember that. But it probably would be more efficient to put your full name in there so that people can find you.
Thank you.
Contributing to Call to the Pen, right, from the Fanside Network covering the Marlins.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a really shrewd analyst over there, and he's a good follow on Twitter at MIA Sports Minute as well. So thank you for joining us, Sean, for the first time since Jeopardy.
Appreciate that. Happy to be here. I'm out of state, so I got my game out of me going to Frisco last weekend, but can't make the opener.
Yeah, you and me both covering this team from out of state. Here entering the home opener, a 4-game series against the Phillies. The Marlins coming in at 1-4. And I wanted to just start really generally as they enter this series about who's to blame for the fact that they are in this position. It's a tiny, tiny sample size, but this is a team that historically almost every single year gets off to these slow starts, ones that can just be really frustrating and can turn people away pretty quickly in a market where there are other consistently winning teams to follow. This is the one thing they were avoiding. This is the one thing that even internally and externally they were voicing about the importance of getting off to a slow start, and they have not. So I put this up for a question on Twitter as well, and I got a bunch of responses about who specifically has underachieved. If you look at this team, what's the reason why they have only won one of their first 5 games? And going to you first, I guess, Sean, anything in particular that you forecasted, that you expected to see out of this group of players these first few games that you haven't seen, that can explain why they were on the wrong end of most of those first couple series?
Well, yeah, I was hoping for a little hotter start from the bats. I mean, I think it's 2 for 29 with runners in scoring position. It's not what you want, not even close. The silver lining approach would be to just blame this on Rob Manfred's lockout and jet lag. Only 2 teams had to fly cross country to start the season. We're the only one who had to fly from east to west. I've read a bunch of studies backing up that that's harder to do with the 2 on there. I mean, I just say it that way because I think if we're talking about even 2 and 3 than 1 and 4, this is much different on there. I mean, a lot of the struggles here would have been true, a couple breaks, but no, that hitting of runners in scoring position, I think is where it's got to be. I'd love to just blame Anthony Bass, but I'm feeling 1 win better. But runners in scoring position, that's got to pick up. We've got about BA, Mickey, Aggie all batting in the low 100s right about now. That's got to pick up from the veterans.
I put this on Twitter, and a lot of people responded there, so that's why I'm generally gradually filling up the chat with people's reasonings and for why they're underperforming. We had our boy Marlins John Rodriguez call out Don Mattingly and play a joke about his name about that. From SSN_Marlins about just spending the money in the wrong places and the unwillingness to spend. We're going to get into that later in the show about the unwillingness to spend on some individual players in particular that we'll be seeing on the other side of the series and neglecting to add to the bullpen. You know, they did technically add to the bullpen at the very end, but not the type of guys that really totally changed everything. And I mean, one of those relievers, like Cole Sulser in particular, he was clean, I think, across like 3 outings in that first road trip. But then Tanner Scott, he allowed a pretty critical home run in that final game against the Angels that ultimately went a long way towards making the difference. Got Mike B, 18-768, about just the top of the lineup, not producing. And I'm sure that's going to come up here as well about the order of the lineup and who is not at the top of the lineup. That's probably one of the most consistent complaints I've heard about this team. Anything to add on that, Alex, about particular things about this team that you thought were going to be there those first few games that just haven't been there and that have made the difference between wins and losses?
Yeah, no, I think Sean's exactly right. I think it's just the offense. You have to really look at guys that they brought in, that were their guys that they brought in, Avi and Soler, and they've both been very bad, like real bad. Like, I know we expected strikeouts from both of these guys, but when you see Avi down there in the first percentile in chase rate, it tells you he's swinging at very bad pitches, like pitches that aren't even close. I know he has some kind of back issue or something like that we found out about. So hopefully that's what it is with him. And then Soler, man, he's been walking. That's pretty much it. 7th percentile in K rate. Again, this guy's going to strike out, but he's also going to hit the ball hard. But he's only done one of those things so far, and that's the strikeouts. So that's the guys that you kind of look at, and you say, man, you expected a lot more. Even though it's very early, it's a small sample. These are amongst the worst hitters in baseball right now. So I think you really have to look at that and say that's the main factor. I know people are going to look at Donnie. That's another conversation. We may have that one later. But, he wants his guys to play. Yeah, he took out Jazz second game. We all know that story. It's going backwards. Should Jazz be higher? I'm sure we'll get to that as well. But, man, for my opinion there, I agree. I think the bullpen's been surprisingly good. Rotation's been good, 4 out of 5. So yeah, it's those signings that they made. Soler and Avi for me in particular that have been really bad.
Right. My shorthand for looking at how a warning sign that a hitter is in a really bad funk is looking at their weighted runs created plus, WRC plus, and if it's below 0, that's a big warning sign. So who do we have right now in this lineup that's below 0? Aggie is at a -69. Avasale is at -13. Even Miguel Rojas is at -16. I don't think we brought him up, but Miggy didn't play well on that road trip either. And even on the defensive end in that final game, it made a pretty big difference. And yeah, generally what Lucas is saying in here about the pitching, it has been pretty great with a few exceptions, just a couple of high leverage situations that didn't go their way, a couple of situations that would have looked different if they actually had the lead or had a multiple run lead in those situations. It all kind of ties together. So they answer this, 1-4, but with like a -6 run differential, which isn't quite that terrible. It just shows you that a lot of these games, 4 of their 5 games so far, have come down to a single run. So at the very least, I'm grateful for that as a content creator. Whenever a game ends a 1-run game, there's just a million things you can second guess, and everybody has a very visceral reaction to it. So from that aspect, I appreciate what we've seen so far. But on the other side, Sean, little bright spots that you've seen from this team that I'm going to steal a line. Maybe Jeremy Taché of Valley Sports Florida is watching this later when he's off duty, about how he always asks his guests, what was something that brought you joy recently? So what is something that brought you joy over the past week about seeing the team, either an individual player or just something that actually they did well during this stretch, despite the losses?
That individual player did about every pitch that Jesus Luzardo threw in his start. That was just, that was fantastic to see. That, that kind of start really, you felt pretty confident in our big three, based on track record, but you knew that you wanted to see the back end of our rotation, come alive as well. And just, Luzardo, I mean, there's going to be bumps, based on his track record, but just seeing what his upside is, that was really eye-opening and really exciting to see. Kind of if we think about the spring stats, we had some concern about Pablo coming in, and I really like seeing him just deliver a really solid outing. I mean, I think it's fair to say the best of our big three there. That Lopez start kind of, if I had any concerns about how he looked in spring, that took a lot of them away.
Right. And to point in there are some people that did have very legitimate concerns just based on that spring training outing. And I tried to pump the brakes on that. But even within my own squad, there were some rumblings about, is he really healthy? Can we really trust him? Should we have traded him?
A lot to give you pause, but I felt a lot better seeing him, deliver that start. So I'd say that's it on the pitching side. And you mentioned Sulser. So seeing to that addition, he looks pretty solid. Even Scott. I mean, I think Rendon, that was a hitter's hit. I mean, I can't even be that mad about where Scott located that pitch. They got crushed, unfortunately. But so seeing the additions look positive. And then lastly, Stallings. And I kind of, I think I actually called it a little bit. That his home run in the first game.
Right. So, you were at the ballpark for that first game, right?
So seeing that. So those additions, all additions from this front office, those were all, checks. So, Soler and Avi, they've got to step it up, but seeing those other ones, especially Stallings, be good from the start. I'd say that was my biggest positive.
Give me some good stuff, Alex.
Yeah, no, I think Sean's right again. I mean, I know you weren't the highest on the Baltimore trade, right? You said that before, that you kind of second guessed a little bit. Sulser's been okay, serviceable, but Tanner Scott, man, he's been really good. I mean, if you look at his StatCast numbers alone, really good. 91st in expected batting average, 77th K percentage. Man, whiffs, he's up in like the 80th percentile as well. Like, that guy is nasty if he's commanding. He had that one bad moment, but other than that, I mean, he's walked a couple guys too. Walked too many guys, I will say. But again, small sample, right? So, man, if he's commanding, which I think he has appeared to figure out here with the Marlins and with Mel and everything probably as well goes into that. I really like that guy as a high leverage piece. I think he's good. I really do. I think he's probably at this point, when the trade happened, I'm like, okay, Sulser's probably more the closer. He's got the changeup. He's got another pitch. This guy throws 100 with that dead nasty slider. I think he's a closer if he keeps on this current track that he's on and walks with a little less guys. I like that guy. I think he's really good. So that's been a player for me. Luzardo, I gotta mention him as well. You guys know that I followed him when he was in high school. I used to cover high school ball for a different company before I went off on my own. And he, like I've told you guys, he was up in the high 90s as a sophomore, even better, even better with the A's in his minor league career. Fell off a lot, had the command issues. But I think you saw last night, or 2 nights ago, exactly what that kid can be. And I called it out last show that was going to be my MVP. And I think he probably was, by the metric that you go by, Eli, because he was really, really good. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody ahead of him, but I would guess him. Anyways, he was amazing. If he keeps doing that, man, who do you push out? I mean, there's only one clear candidate that you could push out with all these pitchers coming behind, like Edward, that is not here right now. Sixto, if he gets healthy, Max Meyer when he's ready to come up. Like, it's Yuri, who's apparently not that far away. McCambly, like, what happens with this rotation? But I don't consider that a bad problem. I consider that a very good problem. So seeing Luzardo start to figure it out, that's something that really, really excited me. And then as a last, something that's not player related, those banners. I mean, I know they're not perfect. We saw the picture that Isaac posted today.
Wait, hold up. I'm going to pull it up for the people to see.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed. I kind of took a step down today after seeing that, but it's all right. They're still there, and you could still kind of see it, right? So,
I have to zoom in a lot to see the numbers. There you go.
I didn't know they were sheer.
My guess is they don't want to block the skyline, which that's the ambiance of Marlins Park, is that view, right? So you kind of get it from the marketing side that they don't want to take that away when they're on TV or whatever it may be. I kind of get it, but at the same time, come on, like, if you're gonna put up a banner, make it visible. We got to see it. We got to see it. Like, my mom, who's in her 60s, she'd be looking at that with squinted eyes, being like, I can't see it, right? So it sucks, but that. Everything together, they finally did it. They had Jeff back out there to do it. That was amazing. I'm still all for it, and I still think they did a pretty good job. So bravo for that.
Well, let's get a live report from Noah Berger. He's at the game, as is like half of our staff for this one at Lone Depot. I don't know if he's going to be able to talk from his phone and technically, but if you can, Noah, can you see the banners from where you are and how do they look?
So from where I'm sitting, there's kind of the contrast with the roof, but I can't see. The ears are pretty much see-through. It's not good. It literally looks like half-ply toilet paper was used to make the banner. There are 5 players right now up on the concourse, and there is just a complete and total fan scrum around them. It's hysterical.
Well, that's good. So they're like doing the thing right after batting practice. They go to that's cool and actually greet people.
Yeah, they have Pablo, Eliezer, Trevor, Anthony Bender, and Richard Blyer.
Superstars, a lot of them. About my boy Anthony Bender out there greeting everybody. Good. So yeah, like I said, Noah at the game, Daniel at the game, Isaac at the game. While they're here, I should remind people that at the end of the show, we have a predictions segment that we've done last year as well, but we're taking it more seriously this time and holding each other accountable for the predictions that we make. And Sean will get his chance to hop on the leaderboard this time as well, where we predict the series winner and the number of games, basically predict the number of games the Marlins will win in the series, and then pick an MVP, which I calculate based on win probability added. So far, I was the one that nailed the Giants series. Everybody got the Angels series wrong. This is something I notice every single year is people have this, there's just this natural optimism about the team coming out of the gate. So nobody predicted them to actually get swept in that series. And that allowed me to hold on to the lead. But we did have some people correctly predict Jazz being the series MVP. I think it was this past series. Oh no, it was Luzardo. Luzardo, you're right.
Yeah, I thought it was, I have a point. So I know I was wrong on both series predictions. So it must have been Luzardo, right?
We had Jazz in the first series, Luzardo in the next series, and that's coming at the end of the show, where we'll make those predictions again, and we'll keep track of it throughout the whole season as well. I don't put too much thought into that stuff, so I don't expect to win this. But and also the guys that aren't on the stream with us, they submitted picks in advance, so I'm going to mention their picks, but even if they're not on here to deliver them, so they're still alive in this as we go through the season. That's going to be a fun little gimmick to follow. And also a reminder with fish picks. That's something we brought back for this year, but made it a one series at a time prediction challenge. So people can find the link on that directly in every single one of our game threads on the site. We tweeted out like 3 times or 4 times leading up to the start of a first series, just free prop bets that you can make about the series. And the winner at the end of each inning, I split up the season into 9 innings. So like every few weeks, we're giving away a free t-shirt that we make with a Breaking Tea. So you get your choice of Charlie Sheen's favorite shirt, the Smooth Jazz t-shirt, Air Rojas, Solar Power, all those potentially for winners if you make those prop bets correctly. But so that's, people can go to the site. It's also in the YouTube description as well. Final reminder that I don't do this enough during the season because we have a big Twitter audience, and I appreciate all you guys like commenting right now probably, but I can't see what you're saying. If you want to actually have your comments on the screen and have us bring them on the screen and actually see them live, go to the YouTube or the Facebook stream of this as well. That's something that I need to remind people throughout the season until StreamYard makes that adjustment. They used to have the full Twitter integration, but right now that's the one missing element out of that. As we're now 15 minutes from the start of the game, from the first pitch thrown by Yandel, who if Isaac was here, Isaac would be cracking up about how the Marlins maybe
I still don't know who that is.
Do you see him like hanging around somewhere?
I don't know who he is. How could I see him hanging around? I have no idea who he is.
Well, and so while we still have you, like what does the attendance look like at this point? What are you forecasting for the size of the crowd that's going to be, if not at first pitch, and like shortly after first pitch? What is your best guess from sitting there?
At best. No, there's a lot of people up on the concourse, and there was a lot of people coming in. It's going to be a nice crowd, but nothing crazy. There are people up in the upper deck already.
No, tell that guy behind you he needs a new jersey. No, I'm just kidding.
No. But yeah. They brought the flag. They brought the big American flag out onto the field and then took it away.
He'll be back, I imagine. I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, they always do that on the home opener. So I'm sure they'll do it.
If memory serves me right, in 2019, it was announced attendance around 25,000. And historically, they're a lot higher than that. But, there's a difference between hosting opening day and then having a home opener a full week later, and actually 2 weeks later than the original start date.
And with your team being 1-4.
Yes. If you're going to have those extra days in between, then you really need them to get off to a hot start. Otherwise, people making last-minute decisions would be like, ugh.
Thursday too.
Thursday. On the other side, you get Sandy starting. I don't think there's any starter that would get people more excited about that. So that would help. And for the moment, all the position players are healthy, so you get to see Soler in the lineup and obviously Ayala in the lineup and Wendell in the lineup and Stallings in the lineup. They're all there, but I don't. Yeah,
I was looking at it earlier. I was looking at it earlier just on Marlins.com and looking at what tickets have sold versus what tickets have not sold. And they've sold most of, I would say, 85 to 90% of the area where Noah is sitting behind home plate all the way around the stadium into foul ground and left field. What has not sold is the upper deck, which I don't even know why it was put on sale, honestly, but it was. And the outfield near the bullpens. Those are the only two sections that have not really sold. But yeah, that whole area behind home plate all the way around is pretty much sold out. So that doesn't say how many people are going to be there. That just says how many tickets they sold, which is the attendance that they will announce. So if you go by that, it should be all right. 25,000, maybe. Maybe.
Before I forget,
what's a good over/under number? You wanna?
I'm at like 23,000.
Yeah.
That's
I would say just under 25 would be my number. 23, 24, somewhere in there would be my guess.
Welcome, fellas, Kevin and D-Rod. Where are you guys sitting? If you can turn on the sound. Oh, they're just watching. They're just here enjoying the ride.
Yo!
There we go. Oh, that's a good angle of it. So they're on the first? They're in left field? Left field? I don't know. It's good.
They're behind me.
I got
Yeah, they're in like third baseline, left field kind of area.
They're in the same section as me, just further up.
I wanted to play this video before I forget. David Ortiz clamoring people to show out to the ballpark in support of the Marlins.
I live in Miami, and it feels like the Marlins are in the middle of spring training games right now. Nobody's talking about it. Let's support the Marlins. The bottom feeder, man, they're getting it done. And they need you to be cheering out there for them, so let's go.
Why don't you give them
Let's go, Miami. Let's go. I live there now. Let's go, 305.
Yeah, that obviously was not recorded for the home opener. That was from the 2020 NLDS, but it ages pretty well. It got some good engagement on Twitter. People like Big Papi, like clamoring for people to show out to the games. And if they're winning, it all is about whether the team is winning, because they snuck into the playoffs that year. If the team is actually getting it done, then people will show out, but not getting it done at the very moment. So we're going to go to break. 30 seconds. On the other side, we'll talk more about this particular matchup. The first home series for the Marlins, the first one against a division rival, against a team that has a lot of new places, a team that the Marlins have very stubbornly owned and overachieved against, I should say, in recent seasons, the Phillies. So back in 30 seconds.
Why bother with empty shelves at retail stores, waiting 3 days for a break to fill, or driving across town to find out your hobby shop closed at 4 when you always have a card show in your pocket? With Loop, you can instantly buy cards, packs, boxes, or into auctions with the click of a button, and do it all while chatting with some of the best personalities and the best community in the hobby. Download the Loop app now on iOS or Android. Loop, a card show in your pocket.
Welcome back. We're too zoomed in. Let's zoom out again. Now that Noah is enjoying the game, the festivities at Lone Depot Park should be getting underway right about now. I think they said at 6 o'clock on the field is when they do fun stuff. We are on Fish Stripes Live, presented by Loop. Every single Marlins series throughout this season, we're having these preview shows. More than 50 still to go. We're going to mix in some Jeopardy episodes as well. I think the first one of those will be April 25th. That's all Fish Stripes Live. That's all presented by Loop. Best place to go for card collectors, buyers, or sellers. Check out their store. The address is scrolling on the bottom, or just download their app. And that link is directly in the episode description as well, and all over fishstripes.com. We have Sean Millerick with us from Call to the Pen on this episode. And of course, Alex Carver from Fish on the Farm joining us. Now that I bring that up, before we go into the particulars of this series, there has been, and we talked about some of the positives at the major league level for this team, but I know one that both of you are very keenly aware of is what Max Meyer has been doing, really dating back to spring training. He showed up to spring training, throwing harder, changeup looking better. We saw it in an exhibition game at the Grapefruit League where he was perfect. And then he's gone to AAA where he's essentially continued to be perfect. Literally in his most recent outing just a couple of days ago, I wanted to show, I had video from Baseball America. For people that have subscriptions to that, they got amazing footage of every single pitch that he threw in his last start from a great behind home plate angle. And they got these slow-mo angles as well. This is his changeup. This is the key pitch for him in his development as a starter. This is the reason why he's still in the minors, is because the Marlins aren't totally sold yet on this getting major league hitters out. But there's a beautiful strikeout by it in his most recent outing against the Durham Bulls too. Like, people don't pay close attention to this, but this is the Rays AAA affiliate, and they were like as dominant as any team in minor league baseball last year. Like, that farm system, as loaded as it is, it's to pitch 5 perfect innings against that lineup under any circumstances is pretty spectacular. So Alex, going to you on Max. I know that we were briefly in a bit of a panic about his injury, which turned out to just be a cramping situation taken out in the middle of a perfect game. One that it was not a Clayton Kershaw situation. It was a little scarier than that, where there was an actual little injury involved, but thankfully he seems to be fine, on track for his next start. And I was the one mentioning in spring training, like fighting back against the idea of him being in the majors right now. I wanted to see his changeup performing. And now in a small sample, we're seeing his changeup really perform. Is there anything else that this guy needs to do in the minors before actually like making this pitching staff even better than it currently is?
My answer for you would be surpass the deadline when they can save a year of control. That's the answer. That's what he has to do to make the majors, is whatever that June deadline, I don't know the exact date, whatever that is, where they could save the year of control in arbitration. That's what he has to do to make the major league team. And that's it. That's absolutely it. What I've liked to see, what I have liked about him this year compared to last year is the ability to command. Last year, obviously AA, first season. I think the command was a little shaky at times. That's kind of hard to say because of how many guys he struck out. But just seeing where the catcher set up versus where the pitch landed didn't really matter in most cases because he could get swings and misses anyways because of how good his stuff is. But he just needed to iron out his command a little bit. The walk rate was slightly elevated, I will say. Wasn't great, wasn't bad at all, but it just wasn't fantastic. And then this year he comes up and in 9 innings he's walked 1 guy. He's allowed like 2 hits, and he's showing he can dust off the changeup, which I always say about him. And you can go back to other reports about him in college, is that he had that pitch, but just really didn't need to throw it because of how good his fastball slider was. So he's dusting off the pitch. He had it before. He's going to have it again. That, what you said, Eli, about them wanting to see him throw the changeup more is just an excuse. What they really want is for him to surpass that deadline where they can save a year of control. And once he does that, he's going to be on the Marlins. He won't be on the Marlins before that. I really don't think that he will be on the Marlins before that date. I believe it's in June. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
I will correct you. So there are a couple of clear dates. The date is fast approaching in terms of a year of service time. That would be only about a week and a half from now. It's 17 or so days into. There are 2 deadlines that come to mind. There's that one, the extra year of control. You just wait about 2.5 weeks into the new season, and you get 7 seasons of control instead of 6. The other deadline in June is not even like a specific number. That's for arbitration, Super 2 status, getting to arbitration a year earlier.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Is the date further in the future with the Super 2 status, which I get convoluted on. I'm not like you're way smarter on that stuff than me. That's why I probably screwed up the dates. But yeah, definitely they're going to do everything they can to keep this guy on the Marlins as long as they possibly can. And like I always say, they're going to take the full advantage of that control. So he has to stay down until that June date, I believe, is when he will have a chance to come up. I think the changeup thing's just an excuse. But yeah, he's been great. It's a joy to watch him pitch. I love watching him every time he pitches. It's really, really encouraging stuff. And people forget this is his second major league season because, of course, 2020 didn't happen. So, I mean, this guy's, pitching in basically his first games. I mean, he got a full season last year. He'll probably get, at least close to half the season in AAA this year. And then I think as soon as possible with the control stuff that we just mentioned with arbitration and Super 2 status, he has to be here. And there's one main candidate to send down with Eliezer. He stays in the rotation for me. Doesn't go. I know everybody's clamoring, go put him in the bullpen, blah, blah, blah. No, the guy's a starter. He's got to stay as a starter for sure.
Right. Quickly, Sean, just on Max Meyer, because I know you put your thoughts on that in an article up on Call to the Pen about him being ready to him being the one that you want to see in the rotation right away. So if anything that he didn't bring up about that you want to add about why you think he's ready and why that should happen sooner rather than later.
Well, I mean, I think we both agree he's ready now. It's contract stuff. That's the reason he's going to wait. The idea behind that article was that, just kind of thinking it would be partly like a good jolt, a good message to kind of, get some, life into the team, that kind of commitment. I mean, obviously, we said at the top, offense has been the problem. I don't think they're going to do anything to fix the offense, but they're, and we can let that play out a bit. But I think just, calling up this guy now who's definitely proven he's ready. One thing I looked at before I kind of put that out there that we should call up this young kid this soon was how many innings Jose had in the minors. And I think he's about 10 innings or so, shy of that right now. And that's not counting college, which I think is kind of fair to, to count, had some good competition there. So if we count that, I mean, he's, so I've seen at least one example before where someone's had that little experience and come in and dominated right away. And everything I've seen from Meyer suggests to me that he can do it again. So yeah, I made the really aggressive push. I thought there was kind of room in the rotation just to have him start Sunday, honestly, and just bring him in, or they can hold him for next week if they wanted, let him get a home start in this one. But yeah, that was the thinking there, that it would just kind of be, all right, this team's still going for it this year, slow start or not. We're just putting the best roster together that we can. But do I expect that to happen? No, I expect service time games and manipulation, despite a lockout where we eliminated supposedly ways to do a bunch of service time games. But yeah, I think he'll be up before June. I'll go with that. I'll kind of say that maybe they'll split the difference, between the two dates on there, and then we'll see him in May. Fingers crossed for that. But I'd love to see him immediately. I think that would be huge for the fans, huge for the locker room. But yeah, he doesn't need to do anything else. He's ready to go.
Right, and I'm kind of on the same page as you, where it's clear that he's going to stay down past that original cutoff for the extra year service time, but I don't think they're going to wait all the way for the arbitration benefits. It's really, to me, probably going to be as soon as a starter lands on the IL for any reason, which is going to happen at some point inevitably. I mean, last year it happened almost immediately with Eliezer, and then very quickly after, who was the other one that went down at the start of the season? Where they were just, Sixto was the one that went down like right before opening day, who they thought was going to be in that rotation as well.
Did we ever have a number 5 starter? just so many
question mark for a while, right?
At the very end of the year, it was the same rotation that we have now when Eliezer finally got back and Luzardo was here. And the hope is that those same 5 guys are just a little bit better now than they were even at that point.
I think because you bring him up, Eli, I think bring up Sixto, like, what do they do there? Like, say Max is ready. Well, Max is ready now. We know that, but they're not going to call him up right now. We just said that. But let's say Sixto is looking ready and somehow looking healthy somehow by around the same time. What happens? I mean, you say that's a good problem, but who gets that call? I mean, I you know how I feel. I give it to Meyer, but that's another interesting topic to bring up because Sixto could be around and be back right around that same time frame, I think. So from what we know of his injury, so it's definitely interesting. Going to be an interesting time coming up there with who you go to. But yeah.
For the rest of this, we'll focus just specifically on Marlins versus Phillies series, and Eliezer kind of ties into that because this will be everybody in the rotation is going to start in the series for the Marlins except for Luzardo. So we'll talk plenty about Luzardo on the next stream, but he's the one guy that we don't get to see, even though he was the one that had the most dominant first start. So that's a little frustrating. But let me put the lineups up here for people to see on the side. With these teams, the Phillies rested a few guys yesterday, and of course the Marlins were off yesterday, and now they're both kind of at full strength again. The one guy who was missing the past few days was Garcia. He had back tenderness. Alex, you alluded to that before. They were calling it back tenderness, and so he hasn't played since Sunday. A nice period off to refocus there. For the Phillies tonight, Schwarber, Realmuto, Harper, Castellanos, Hoskins, Didi, Camargo, Bryson Stott, and Vierling. Those are the two young guys on their team. And for the Marlins, it's the exact same group that was there on opening day. They just slightly switched the order. I think Stallings and Rojas just flipped one spot. Otherwise, it's kind of identical to what they rolled out in that first game against the Giants. So they're at full strength. They're facing Kyle Gibson of the Phillies in this first start. And the Marlins, of course, have Sandy. This is the first time, for people that care about this is the first time that the Marlins are betting favorites to win a game so far this season. Obviously, starting off on the road and playing against some decent teams, they were underdogs. In this game, they're very slight favorites, mainly because of the advantage they have in that starting pitching matchup. Sean, are there any particular complaints you have about the lineup and the order of the lineup for this particular game? I know a lot of other people have a very particular concern. I'm wondering if you share that about Jazz being at the very bottom.
I mean, he seems to be, he seems to be hitting all right. That's the only one. That's my only hedge, is that two home runs out of that spot already. He's on a hell of a pace, right? This early in the season, but yeah, you've got to move him up a little. You've got to move him up a little higher, I would say. But other than that, I'm happy to see everyone else back out there. Those look like the best bats. I think BA needs a day off, so I'm glad that he's not.
For people that haven't been following closely during the pregame, BA got his hair cut finally after kind of growing it out nonstop the past calendar year or so.
Hey, whatever helps.
It's back similar to what it was in 2018, 2019. Every single year it gets a little bit longer, but now he's taking a step back to refocus with him. So yeah, he's not in there, but he I'm sure he's going to start at some point during the series, especially. It's a tricky situation. There's been, on the other side, for all the enthusiasm about Jazz, there's been panic about BA, considering not just the lack of production, but also just the swing and miss, continuing some familiar issues he's had in the past with breaking balls, with just swing at pitches inside the zone. Like, to this point in the season, he is one of the higher strikeout rates in the majors, which is a red flag and had never really been that much of a problem before. And this is carrying over from spring training. When you combine all of that, Alex, from spring training to the regular season, what is your concern level with BA at this point? And I'm curious about that. How close are you to what would you want to see with the way that they're handling him moving forward, for at least for the near future?
Yeah, it sucks with him, man. Because those couple of years that he had where he was great on defense, killing the ball. And man, it's just fallen off so far because of all the injuries that he's had. And now you have a real question mark. You really, really do. How do you keep Joey Wendell out of the lineup? And you have to play Joey Wendell over Brian Anderson. There's no question. There's absolutely no question about it. You traded a great prospect for him. You guys all know how much I love Cam Meisner. And all the guy did all through spring training and so far this year is hit the baseball, and he's played really good defense as well. I love Joey Wendell, man. I don't think there's any way you can argue BA over Wendell. It's not possible. If this team wants to win and forget about all their, development and everything else that they have to do, and BA shouldn't have to develop anymore anyways. How long has he been in the league? A long time, right? 2018.
Yeah,
right?
4+ years at this point.
Yeah, so he's been around. It's not like it's send him down to the minors and see what he does and call him. No, it's not that. It's he's going to perform.
I do want to step in just to make people aware that they do have the option to send him down to the minors. He is in that sweet spot where he hasn't quite reached 5 years of service time that he needs to be able to to decline an option. So any point between now and August, they have the flexibility to do so. If they want to, but finish up your thought on him.
Yeah, but you don't want to block Isan Diaz in the minors, man. Come on. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, no, and you're right. They can send him down, and that would be, imagine the fan reaction to that. I mean, maybe it would be the smart thing to do. I don't know. I say he's either going to make it happen this year or his career with the Marlins. I think his career with the Marlins is probably already over. Anyways, they have so many long-term infielders that they can move to third base. You know, they can get by with Joey Wendell, who is very good. You got John Birdie behind that. You know, right? He's not even playing right now mostly. So, you know, 2021 was a disaster. I think he's pretty much out. I think the ship has sailed on extending him. Just hasn't done it. Hasn't stayed healthy. Hasn't performed, and that's what happens. And it sucks to see that with BA because I think he's very good when he's going well and when he's healthy. But no, I don't see a route for him to be in this lineup every day. I really don't. Save off days and stuff like that. So he's a glorified bench player right now, and I think that's all he'll ever be for Miami.
Right, and so I agree with you about his role at the moment, and I don't really see that being like the worst thing in the world. That's why they went out to get Joey Wendell, is because with BA coming off a shaky year and particularly off that shoulder surgery, he was a risky guy. Even I, somebody that was pounding the table at one point to extend BA long term, like I recognize that this is clearly the circumstances have changed and you can't trust him for this particular year. But you compare him to who they had in that like role, that utility role. He's a utility player right now, and you just compare him to the utility players they've had the last few years. I think he's a big upgrade in that regard. He's making more money than you'd like to pay for a utility player. The optics are not great. And I guess personally, it's going to be difficult for him because when he's been healthy throughout his entire major league career, he's been an everyday player. It's been that simple, that when he's been ready to play, he is their team leader over the last handful of years in all the counting stats, all the games played. He has been an automatic in the lineup when he's been feeling totally healthy. So that's an adjustment from his part. That's really the key, is whether he can still be effective in a limited role, if he's going to handle that all right. If he doesn't, then it sucks. But if you're getting like this type of player, even a slightly reduced form from his best years, like it's a good role player. It's somebody that actually will help you win games when they're put in the right matchups and to help balance out, those regular starting nine that you have.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you. My question for you is this, to follow that up really quick. From what we know of BI, obviously we're not in this guy's head. We don't know what he's thinking, but from what we know of him and his personalities, as long as he's been here, do you see him being able to handle that, saying, hey, you're a bench player now. You're not a starter anymore. You're on the bench. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to assume we know what the guy is thinking or anything, but just knowing his personality, he's very fiery. He's very competitive. He wants to play like all players do, all great players do. And he was on such a great trajectory, and his career has gone like this. So how do you handle that if you're him? That's very hard to do. So I have doubts in my mind that he can handle that kind of a demotion to that role. But if he can, you're right. He'd be very good and an upgrade over a lot of guys. So for sure.
I'd like to think he'd be able to get, just, I guess, some tutelage on that from some of the other guys on this roster. I mean, Rojas has been in that position. Birdie's been in that position. Wendell's been, that guy. They've, been now they kind of, Wendell and Rojas, they, climbed from there. But so we've got a lot of guys who have been the super utility, the kind of glue guy on the bench. I'm hoping maybe that's something he can lean on to, take something away from if we're talking.
Or at least garner up some trade value, because right now I don't think he has any. Honestly, I don't think he has much at all. So yeah, at least get some trade value. You get, if they're in it at the deadline, you get a piece that you need. It would be nice. But I wish him the best. I love BA. I mean, when he's going good, he's really good, like you said, Eli. So yeah, I hope he can deal with that kind of a role, because he'd be very good at it for sure.
One particular storyline I wanted to touch on before prediction time with the Phillies is this is the first welcoming of Nick Castellanos to Miami since an offseason where even before the lockout and after, mostly before, even during, like there was persistent rumors that the Marlins were interested in Castellanos, in particular, former CEO Derek Jeter. And at the end of it, the Phillies outbid them for him. The Marlins shortly after pivot to Jorge Soler. And so he's in the ballpark. He's from South Florida. There's a very large media contingent at the game today that usually aren't there. And Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, he was the one that was kind of out in front with a lot of this reporting about the Marlins being interested in Castellanos. So he just went up to him directly on the field pregame and gets this comment that Castellanos, in his estimation, thought that confirmed that the Marlins were interested in him, saying, just reading the tweet for people that are listening, Nick Castellanos told me that he thought he would be a Marlin until Jeter left the Marlins. Jeter wanted him. So that was at 3:17 this afternoon. And barely an hour later, Craig Mish points out that he does not denying that the Marlins were interested, but just the reality of that happening for someone that ultimately got 5 years, $100 million, and had draft pick compensation attached to him. That Mish saying no matter what Nick Castellanos says, or consequently what Derek Jeter thought, the Marlins were never signing Nick Castellanos. As a refresher, I don't know where you stand on this, Sean, and I kind of know where Alex stands, where he had some other preferences for where the Marlins would go with their outfield. Were you somebody that was excited about the possibility of Castellanos when those rumors came out? And would you think the team would be better off with him instead of the way that they did address their corner outfield spots?
I preferred Schwarber of the two Phillies that are in town to visit us this weekend, and that's going to be a big storyline to watch. Is how these two, who whether it was really going to happen or not, who everyone was saying should be and could be and might be and wouldn't it be great, and they're here now for 4 days and to see. But no, I mean, but budget constraints. I mean, if I think of it down the line, if I'm signing Castellanos, it probably would mean that we would not be signing Rogers or Pablo or someone else in a couple of years. But I'd say there was a price point where I would have been right with it. I mean, he really didn't fit. A lot of the arguments that came up that weren't money for not signing him bothered me. Like, oh, he's blocking our outfield prospects. I'm like, well, that's they're prospects. Let's get a guy in here. But I didn't really think it was going to happen financially, and I would have liked to have seen, a little more money spent in other places, bullpen mainly. And I would have been happy with Soler and a legit closer, for a frontline closer rather than Castellanos. But
and I know where Alex stands, and I think a lot of our regular viewers know how much he was pushing for Michael Conforto. Alex, isn't he still unsigned, Conforto? He's still out there.
He's still unsigned. Yeah. He's
1 year
still
check. Come on, Kim. 1 year.
Still out there waiting. Kim, if you can hear us on your burner, let's go. But yeah, no, he's still out there. Man, I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's probably just the price point that they're unwilling to come off of Boris, right, Eli? So yeah, I mean, they're probably just unwilling to come off the price point and nobody wants to pay it. But man, not a true center fielder. More of a center fielder than Castellanos, but not a true center fielder. But he can play. He can play it. And I'd much rather see him out there than Jesus Sanchez. So yeah, I mean, that would be my guy. He's still out there, like you said. Castellanos, as Sean said, it was the price point. They weren't going to spend $100 million on this guy. And then I know everybody hates to hear it, and I know Eli hates to hear it, and everybody that thinks the Marlins were going to spend money now hate to hear this. They haven't really ever moved off of that stance of staying true to the long-term projection of prospects like Burdick, Leday, and guys like that they really think can contribute to an outfield, including center field. So they weren't signing him for 5 years. That's number one. And they weren't spending $100 million. So like Craig said, would have been cool. Miami guy, right? Wasn't ever going to happen. Conforto, though, could still happen. Go get him.
Yeah, coming to town, the Phillies have a payroll, about 2.5 times that of the Marlins this year. But a lot of objective projection systems see that the team's very similar right now in terms of what they're going to do this season. The Phillies had for all they can do offensively, defensively, one of the worst teams in the majors. And we've already seen that. If you've watched any of their games their first week, they have some very interesting issues on both the infield and the outfield that they're dealing with. As John mentioned, signed both Castellanos and Schwarber, guys who are, especially at this stage of their career, likely DHs and not guys you want in any corner outfield spot. But now they're in a position where at least one of them has to be in the field every single night. On this night, I think it's Schwarber in there and Castellanos as the designated hitter for this one. And they'll be kind of rotating in that role throughout this entire series. Let's get to prediction time, though, as we come up on first pitch, less than 20 minutes away for these predictions already submitted ahead of time by a lot of our usual guys on, being Daniel, being Isaac, Noah. They've submitted theirs ahead of time just to give you an idea of who they picked. We're picking how many games the Marlins are going to win in the series, and then the series MVP as determined by win probability added. The submissions we got ahead of time from Daniel, he has it being a series split 2-2 with Jesus Sanchez as the MVP. Isaac Azut has it a series split as well with Jazz Chisholm Jr. as the MVP. Kevin, series split, Garrett Cooper as the MVP. And Noah Berger, our eternal optimist, he has the Marlins winning 3 out of 4 with Jazz as the MVP for that one. And yeah, just as a reminder, one final time, because I know everybody cares about this so much, where we stand with the leaderboards at this point of the contest. There's me up top with 2 points, Kevin and Alex and Noah with 1 apiece. Still a long, long season to go to make up ground. So just to start with mine, I already thought about this ahead of time. I'm going with a series split 2-2 as well. Probably winning tonight. Then in terms of how it goes, maybe they'll just alternate wins and losses. I'll have it like that throughout the series for the Marlins. They'll be 3-6 at the end of this. So it's not the worst case scenario, but not super inspiring either, especially for a team that is pretty close to full health at this point. You'd want a little bit more. And my MVP, I'm going with Miguel Rojas, who I think has dodged some of the criticism with how poorly he performed on that road trip. He comes in just not doing much at all at the plate. And again, even defensively, he's been a little up and down. But I think there's nothing in particular about him, his skill set, that is faded all of a sudden. He's due for a bounce back. And he's really excited to be playing in front of the home crowd. In fact, just so I remember, I have this clip of him from the Chris Rose rotation recorded yesterday about what the home opener means to him.
I feel like that's exactly what we needed right now. You know, we need to play in our home ballpark. Actually, a lot of people's gonna be playing in front of their families. You know, players that just signed here, like Soler, Garcia, and all of those guys that live here. You know, and they're gonna be playing in front of their families, and I think it's gonna be fun. And Miami's been preparing for this year for a long time, and I think it's going to be excited at the ballpark. Couple changes with our lights. I think we're going to have like new lights that they're going to be like, you know, doing those effects during the game and before the game. They're going to be shut down, and they're going to play a big scoreboard videos and stuff like that. And I think it's going to be exciting because you know, when you're playing under the roof, you can do a lot of different things with that.
So I'm begging YouTube, when this stream is over, don't hit me with a copyright infringement just because that's from another show. I'm just sharing it, passing along a good word of him with Chris Rose on the Chris Rose rotation. So my prediction, series split, Miguel Rojas MVP. What are you thinking, Sean, on those fronts?
Well, yeah, with that trip before it, I think that's got me a little pessimistic. I do just want to say that I love how the rotation lines up. I don't think we could have asked for really anything better. Our best 3 against their worst 3. We ducked Nola. Yeah, okay, we've got Eliezer against Zach Wheeler on Sunday. But first 3 out of 4, it's what you want to see. But I'm still going to say 2-2 because the trip we just had, and that's where I'm inclined to go. Gamesmanship wise, I think I've got to pick someone for the series MVP I haven't heard yet, so I'm going to go.
Wait, just okay. You go with Soler. I just want to say before I lock it in, you are allowed to choose somebody on either team. It doesn't have to be a Marlins player. Okay. We compare the win probability added at the end of it. Naturally, most of us go with Marlins as our picks.
I may have you there, Eli, on the guy from another team, but go ahead, Sean.
But Sean, you want to do Soler or
I'll do Soler. I mean. Yeah, I won't. I don't want to win with the Schwarber's just going to make us cry pick. So Soler.
Gotcha. And take us
going to get going, hit some big bombs. I saw Isaac reporting that he was hitting a bunch to the Budweiser field in batting practice. I think we'll see a couple of those this weekend.
Hope so. He could definitely use it for how he started. But yeah, I mean, we all know that Noah is the optimist. I'm scared shitless of this Phillies lineup. 1 through 5, absolutely ridiculous. And then at the bottom is Bryson Stott, who's one of their top prospects. I know the pitching matchups favor the Marlins. You got, like Sean said, you got the big 3. And then you got Eliezer versus Wheeler, which you can chalk that one up probably right now, in my opinion. But I'm going to say they win 1 game and lose 3. It could be my prediction. And my MVP, and Sean already mentioned him, will be Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber has played 9 games at Marlins/Lone Depot Park and hit 5 home runs. So, yeah, that's my pick. Kyle Schwarber, they win 1 game. The 1 game they win, I'll say they probably win the Pablo start. I really like the look of Pablo the other day. I think they lose the other 3, though, unfortunately.
Myself, a series split. Sean going with the split as well. And Alex, not afraid to just call it like it is. In that scenario, going 1-3, you have a team at 2-7. And even though it's such a small sample, the track record of turning it around from that point in becoming a competitive team, borderline playoff team, the odds are working against them, no matter what the excuses are. But
we need another 03, right?
Yeah.
We need 03 all over again.
Yeah. I imagine if they do, that's how it plays out. Don Mattingly's job security is going to be like one of the big questions entering the next show. Final year of his contract. He's the longest tenure manager in team history, but he has not had a winning season over an actual full-length season. We're prepared for that to be a big discussion point.
Already got tossed in a game. Already made a questionable lineup decision or two. It's there's a way to read it.
Topic.
Already.
I think we'll talk about it next time, but I see it coming to an end personally. But we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah. As we wrap up the show, just a few minutes away from first pitch, a reminder that we are presented by Loop. Their wall, this is the first game with their wall in use at Lone Depot Park. Anything you see in right field, they replace the Cinnamon Toast Crunch guys the figures that used to be across that wall. Those guys are very famous for being involved in the Ronald Acuna Jr. injury. But now we have a more, we have a cleaner look out there. You can't blame a brand for anything like that. So support Loop, of course. Scrolling across the bottom of the screen tells you how to download their app, to visit their shop as well. This has been Fish Stripes Live. Eli Sussman here, Sean Millerick from Call to the Pen, a great follow on Twitter, and Alex Carver from Fish on the Farm. Follow him at Marlins Minors. It's a big day in minor league coverage. I think Alex is itching to get out of here so that he could watch all those games happening at the same time as well. This is great, but we're just happy to have the games back, whether the team struggles or not. All our coverage up on fishstripes.com, across social media. Follow our reporters at the ballpark. That's what I love about these home games is we can send credentialed guys to the games itself, in the press box, in the clubhouse. This is what we live for. This is what we went through this entire long offseason for, us to cover these home games in person. And I'll let you guys know. Tune in from wherever you are, and we'll be back here on the stream, I guess, on Tuesday. Yeah, after another off day. It's an unusual big break. So stick with us. We'll have a lot of other coverage in between then, but still a while to go until the next stream. So as always, go Fish and enjoy the game. Marlins versus Phillies, the next 4 games at Lone Depot Park. See you next time. If I can find the outro video. There it is.
Why bother with empty shelves at retail stores, waiting 3 days for a break to fill, or driving across town to find out your hobby shop closed at 4 when you always have a card show in your pocket? With Loop, you can instantly buy cards, packs, boxes, or into auctions with the click of a button, and do it all while chatting with some of the best personalities and the best community in the hobby. Download the Loop app now on iOS or Android. Loop, a card show in your pocket.